Alpha's Notebook, Tome 1. Braun grunted as Bubo chimed an alert through the echoing chambers of the workshop. A new divine mail. Braun never questioned the will of Gon, but this new D-mail system seems to be more trouble than it's worth at times. Sure, messages are far faster to send than with standard couriers, but at what cost? He groaned to himself as he made a mental note to change the acceptance filters on his box to more restrict the special procurement through arcane means settings. This SPAM is more of an annoyance than anything else. If he had to hear from just one more cousin about how they want to send him pointless treasure holds they acquired once ascending to princedom, if only he could assist them with buying the right attunement tools to secure the transdimensional portal. He laid down his tools and made his way over to the small receptacle that held the incoming D-mail for his review. Gond at least saw it fit in his great progressiveness to maintain some sort of physical component to this whole system. Imagine if he had to be bothered through direct transmission while he was working. Surely progress would cease entirely, as acolytes would be far too engrossed in pointless, frivolous message sending to do any meaningful work. He braced himself against the expected disappointment he was sure to face upon opening the inbox and seeing what was sent. Much to his surprise, however, it was a tome addressed to him by none other than his own envoy. So Alpha, first of many, has finally sent his provisional report. Most excellent indeed. Bubo, come here. We have formal word from Alpha at last. Bubo chirped and flew over to Braun's shoulder. Alpha was as important to Bubo as he was to Braun, for Bubo himself was the inspiration behind Alpha. Directly binding a spirit from the Great Forge to the mortal realm was a taxing process, and one not taken lightly. But Alpha was worth it in Braun's opinion, and Bubo's very existence being forged by the great dwarves of Valhalla proved it to not only be possible, but highly useful as well. Just imagine if Gond in all his glory could help other mortals ascend to a better being. Braun looked down and flexed his metallic hand, imagining his own ascension, then quickly shook the thought. What would be the purpose of staying in the mortal planes if it meant he had to give up his own seat at the great forge of Gond? Preposterous thoughts, and nearly heretical in his opinion. No, he would continue the great progress eternally in the afterlife when his time came. That is why Alpha exists, after all. To provide mortals with a constant guide to Gond's glory for ages to come, and pave a new path for progressive ascension. Braun sighed as he settled into a workbench, his eyes briefly crossing his old armor set against the far wall. He thought briefly of the old companions he had, and wondered if they were truly continuing to use his gifts to bring glory to Gond before banishing the thought. They were, after all, far too hot-headed to be effective envoys in the name of his lord. As most mortals are, sadly. Braun looked at the tome he held in his hands, and Bubo cocked his head, wondering what young Alpha had learned in his travels. The process of binding Alpha's spirit to his form was not perfect, and it stripped him of much of his memory, save his devotion to Gond and a bit of his previous skills from his spirit's mortal life at a monastery in the past. Braun had hoped that his improved form would help offset these drawbacks. Yet he knew that in order to be a fully functional envoy of Gond, that Alpha must go out into the world and experience what life had to offer him anew, in order to best spread the great word of progress.
Progenitor.
Braun always appreciated the lack of formalities in Alpha's speech. It is the way it should always be, in his opinion.
May this tome serve as the first of many to come. I have done as you suggested and sought out a group of 3 individuals to accompany on my travels to better learn of the mortal realms and how to best spread the word of Gond to many. Their fleshbag forms seem varied and relatively fragile.
Braun suppressed a smile at this description. While he knew that Alpha was well aware of the term bodies, he never felt it important to impress upon him the need to refer to mortal coils as such, especially given his ultimate prerogative.
Immediately after encountering them on the path into town, we encountered another fleshbag that fell from the sky in quite magnificent fashion. I believe in what you might describe as a meteor. Their bodies seemed intact, though small. They survived the initial impact, yet expired shortly after. Personal note: is smaller form factor directly proportional to greater durability in this realm? The shortest of the new companions seems to be the most durable. I must take special note to observe this one in physically demanding situations. The now expired meteor fleshbag gave the other fleshbags instructions regarding to some sort of old ones. These fleshbags seem concerned. I will accompany them to gain additional information. We have learned of a creature known as the Librarian that should be able to provide additional insight into these old ones. Proceeding to seek out this Librarian now. Leaving for the Librarian's domain, we encountered some additional hostiles. I have successfully stabilized one of the new fleshbag companions after they engaged in reckless combat. Hypothesis on size being proportional to durability appears to be holding solid. The small, stocky one seems to be much more durable than the other two. I was informed about a particularly interesting development in the natural mating cycles of fleshbags that must be explored. Apparently there is a small chance that natural reproduction may result in the spontaneous combustion and subsequent explosion of small fleshbags as soon as they vacate their birthing creature's body. This demands further exploration. Potential positive conversion tool for ascension? Useful weapon in combat? Additional data required for further analysis.
Braun groaned at the thought of Alpha being manipulated, but then caught himself. Perhaps he was on to something. If he could come up with a new weapon to use for the glory of Gond through unconventional methods, what is that if not the true following of the path to bring about progress? At least this explains why Alpha insisted on a baby bomb prototype some time ago.
We encountered a group of blasphemers surrounding a shrine. My party informed me of their dissent against Gond, and gracefully stood by as I removed them from their heretical ways. These companions have been an excellent choice thus far, both from their educational insights into fleshbag nature as well as their apparent adherence to following Gond's ways. I look forward to crushing further dissidents with them in the future. We encountered the creature known as a Librarian after facing some combat and exploration. All fleshbags are still functional. Librarian creature has extensive documentation of Gond. Recommend acquiring the tomes at some stage for future usage. Librarian may be found here.
Alpha has doodled a detailed map of both the location of the Librarian and how exactly the Librarian's hoard of knowledge is accessed. Braun takes special note to mark this page for future reference.
Also, we released an old one. We'll continue observations. Encountered moth-like swarm. Party believes this to be some sort of horrible abomination or an old one. In my understanding, moths do not have a long lifespan, and thus this observation that they may be an old one seems illogical. Side note, prototype exploding baby was highly effective against said moths. Recommend mass production after some adjustments.
Braun smiled at the thought of his handiwork being used effectively in combat by his own creation. Gond truly is good.
Additional notes on company. Short, stocky one seems highly durable in fights. Possible structural changes for the Ascended? Lithe, pointy-eared one seems adept at shooting things with a bow, but does not seem to wish to close distances often. Perhaps due to structural flaw? Size to durability ratio? Requires further analysis. Dark-skinned one with head protrusions seems curious, very informative. Good source of information. Must seek additional insight. Information from study or biological in nature. Chartering ship for seeking legendary warrior King Theseus. Can fleshbags be returned to mortal form after so long? Possible hamper to expansion plans. Attempted to monitor fleshbag mating rituals. Attempt unsuccessful. Will attempt again at a later date. General population seems relatively reluctant to follow Gond following preaching. Perhaps changing name of approach would make it more amenable. Possible name changes in consideration. Gondism. Gond with the wind. Gundam style. Bombastic Gondtastic, given initial success of incendiary infants. Gondorrhea. Gondsmack, in honor of the progenitor. I will attempt to demo various versions, though I am leaning towards Gondorrhea at this stage. It seems like a concept that can really catch on and spread. Side note. Fleshbag sleep cycles are highly inefficient. Progenitor's disdain for them has been confirmed as warranted. Need for Gond further confirmed. Party continues to inform me of flesh mating rituals. Curious. We have successfully entered into the underworld of some god to revive Theseus. Place appears to be highly inefficient and unproductive at best. Gondian intervention necessity further confirmed. Theseus retrieval successful thanks to progenitor and successful test run of D-mail system. Usefulness confirmed.
Braun scoffed at that thought, given his personal disdain for D-mail. but then appreciated the ability to finally work in peace now that infernal creature he was forced to keep summoning through some God-forsaken curse was finally out of the picture. Perhaps this was Gon's plan all along. Braun made a note to thank Gon for his infinite wisdom later.
Return to mortal realm relatively uneventful. Seeking additional information and resources in fleshbag post-mortem internment centers. Why fleshbags continue to review other long-dead fleshbags is still odd and a point of concern. Would it not be more efficient to utilize their remains and materials in further progress? Additional data required. Acquired boots that allow me to travel faster. Useful for additional spreading of the word. Appear to have side effect of giving off energy currents. Possible useful application in laboratory settings. Incendiary infant adjustments progressing on schedule. Expect to have full production operational within the next few moons, following proper testing. Received boon from demonic entity. Progenitor informed me before my leaving that this was non-conflicting with Gondian ways, given his own boon in the past. Combat and general functionality appears to be improved. Further testing necessary. Progress in Quest to Stop Old Ones continues. I still do not quite understand the need to stop these old ones, given the fact that fleshbags can apparently return to existence after millennia of being dead. Nevertheless, the party remains resolute. Quest took us to another temple of some sort of desert god after encountering some fleshbag tribe following a chrome-focus god. Did not feel the need to confront tribe given their interest in progress, albeit flawed due to following a wrong god, naturally. Will return to area for later conversion when clear superiority of Gond is better established.
Once again, Alpha doodles a map of the tribe's location. Braun briefly considers smiting them from the face of the realm for their blasphemous following of another god, but considers the restraint Alpha has and decides to put off the smiting, for now, to see how future conversion attempts go.
God in Wandering Fleshbag Temple appears to be one of reading. Odd. Device was acquired and presented to Fleshbag Tribe. They assisted us with signaling equipment to contact underwater fleshbags. Underwater civilization appears to be highly advanced. Recommend further investigation to better learn how to bring God's glory further into the world. Acquired unique staff weapon used by underwater peoples. Appears to channel energy into a powerful beam. Reverse engineering is highly recommended. Will return item to Progenitor's Forge for analysis. Our actions resulted in the destruction of the underwater city. Cons. Progress appears to have been ceased in the underwater area. Pros. Technology now easier to retrieve and analyze. Recommend sending retrieval team to gather what is possible and analyze immediately.
Alpha again provides a detailed map of the area.
Special note. Be aware of large aquatic creature guarding area. Recommended to eliminate and analyze. Arrived at a nearby port. Incendiary baby has proven very operational. Successfully swapped incendiary with fleshbag without birthing creature noticing. Resulting explosion caused chaos, however no major emotional issues with parental figure. Hypothesis preliminarily confirmed. Babies do explode naturally, otherwise parental figure would have expressed greater emotional duress at sight of baby exploding. Additional data necessary to confirm hypothesis. Party appears to be relatively safe and content at this stage. Proceeding to return to Progenitor for in-person update and weapon delivery. Sending tome in advance via D-mail system in the event my own structural failure may occur along the way. Underwater people's weapon staff to be provided upon my return for inspection, and new tomes for notes to be acquired for future travels.
Braun furled his eye scales at the closing paragraphs. He had a feeling that Alpha was leaving out some key details in his recounting of the events that had happened since he left the Forge. Why did he mention combat earlier on, and then refrain from any mention at later stages? Did he only go through such few areas in his travels, or was he omitting key details in his journey for some reason? Whatever the cause of the omissions, Braun was sure he would find out soon enough. This new weapon of Alpha's that he uncovered at the submerged civilization, for instance, that could certainly prove interesting. More interesting than anything he had been finding in recent years surrounding the city of Brass, in any case. And the incendiary infants as well. While Braun had been happy to craft the initial prototype, by the sounds of it, Alpha had finally perfected the design. Just imagine being able to successfully replace a child with one of these, and have it wreak havoc without even the child's parents knowing. Ingenious! Braun closed the tome and looked up at Bubo perched upon his shoulder. Bubo himself seemed puzzled, much in the same way as Braun, from what was a blatant lack of information contained in the latter half of this tome. But that could also be due to the fact that Bubo hadn't received any upgrades of his own in some time, and his processing could be quite limited on occasion. As he pondered making some sort of adjustments to Bubo, a new chime piped in from Bubo's built-in notification system. Getting to his feet to check his inbox, Braun was notably disappointed to find it was not a further update from Alpha, but rather some trans-dimensional advertisement for some sort of new timekeeping mechanism developed in some far-off plane. He will definitely be adjusting that SPAM filtration setting. That's for Chaos, sure. And Alpha will be just the creation to assist him with it when he arrives. Putting the tome aside, Braun picked up his God-given hammer and turned to go back to the blessed forge he valued so well. Soon, Bubo, we shall have our answers in person. Until that time, though, we have much to do. The fires of Gond wait for no one. Bubo chirped in agreement and returned to his post. Alpha would be here soon, and there was still much to do. The work on Beta demanded his full attention.